Hello, my name is Brooke Anderson, and for my project, I was web scraping to gather obituaries from those who had died due to COVID. So, my problem for my thesis, I need to collect obituaries from those who had died due to COVID and organize them by date of death. So, my thesis is looking at the semantic frames that we use to talk about death by COVID throughout the course of the pandemic. And so to do that, I'm looking at obituaries. But going through each link and copying and pasting the obituary text into an Excel document was taking forever. And then I also had to organize them by date of death. So this is the basic structure of my program. So first I open an out file to write to the Excel document. And then I create a while loop to increment the page count because there's multiple pages in the memorial website that I found. Then on each page of this memorial website, there are multiple links to individual deceased persons. So I obtained those links for the current page, and then for each of those links, I go in and I obtain the death date, the place of death, and the summary text of their obituary, because their full obituary is actually on a separate link. So then I find that link and go into that link to the full obituary. I open it and I extract the text. Then I write all the data to an out file, just row by row. So one row for each deceased person. And then I increment the page count by 1 and repeat the loop. So this is basically walking you through what I just talked about. I'll open that CSV file. I create a while loop so that I can increment the page count, and the loop will break if the links from the previous page match the links from the current page, aka we've reached the last page, which there are actually 96 pages. So there are almost 1,000 links. The program then grabs all the links for the current page, and using a for loop for each of the grabbed links, I take out the necessary information. And that information is found using XPath, which basically identifies certain elements in the HTML code. For each of those pages containing an obituary summary, I follow a link to the full obituary. And then using XPath, once again, I grab that text. So just to kind of give you a walkthrough of what this is actually doing, we're going to go over to this page. So this is what a page on the memorial looks like. You'll notice up here in the it has page/number. So this is page 5 of the memorial. And then on each page, there's multiple links to individual people. So if you click on one of those links, it'll bring you to a page that looks like this. And all of them have the same format, luckily, so that made it a little easier. So I would extract the place and date of death, and then I'll get this text right here, and then follow the link to read the full obituary. And most of them are formatted much like this. The actual formatting of the text on some of them is different, which was a little bit of a struggle. But then I would extract this text. So going back to the PowerPoint, some of the challenges that I faced. So I had to learn how to use Selector Gadget, how to inspect the HTML of the page and understand it, and then how to modify XPaths. So a little bit of what that looks like. So if I go back to this page, you can click Inspect, and it'll give you the HTML for the page. So for example, when I had to get the places and the dates, those are right up here, has text align center. So I had to look for the text from the class has text align center, and those were those. And then I had to tell it that I just wanted the first 2 elements because I decided not to look at the age of the deceased person. But then another thing that I had to learn about was the Selector Gadget, which I downloaded and applied to my web browser. So if I click this, then I can tell it that, hey, I want to figure out how to grab just this text. So I'll highlight that in green. It thinks I want this text in yellow, and I tell it no, I just want the obituary text. Then I come down here and I click XPath, and it'll tell me this is the path to get to this obituary text. To be honest, the XPath isn't always completely correct, and a lot of times it took a little bit of modification, but it helped me get on the right track, and so I did have to look up a lot about XPaths and how to modify them. And then I also had to figure out how to iterate through each page of the memorial, so looking at the code. So I set I equal to 1 so that it would start on the first page. And then while true, I have this URL page plus I. And so obviously this will start with number 1 and it gets all the information. And then at the end, I plus equals 1, so it'll increment to the next page. And obviously this has to be outside the while loop because it's only true the first time that the code runs. And then it took me a little while to realize that I needed to use the write row function. So once I got all the information down here, I am to the out file, write row, deaths, place, obituary, full text. If you don't do write row, it doesn't keep all of this information in the same row. And so you aren't actually getting all of the information for one person altogether. And so then the result is I have an organized CSV file with over 1,000 obituaries, just over, organized by date of death to analyze for my paper on the semantic frames used to talk about COVID deaths over the course of the pandemic. So just to give you a glimpse of what that looks like. So over here I'll have the date of death, and so this is organized chronologically, so April 19th, April 20th. Place of death, so both of these were Louisiana. So this is the summary text from that first page, and then this is when I link to the full obituary, it'll extract that text. One other problem that I did have, and let me see if I can find an example very quickly. So if it's unable to extract the text, I just had it put a broken link. So that is an ongoing problem I have, how to fix that. So I'll be working on that a little bit more. And then, okay, here's an example. So when I went to the full text, it only got their name, Kanan, and none of the actual text. And that's because if I go back to the website, right here, so you'll notice here it has his name and then there's a line break and then the text. And I have yet to figure out how to make the XPath ignore the line break and gather everything. And so right now it's only gathering the stuff before the line break, which is their name. So those are a few things I've yet to debug. But when I'm done, hopefully I will have filled out this chart with all of the obituaries. And that's my project. Thanks for listening.